Chag Sameach. Welcome. It's good to be back in the sanctuary. Rabbi will be with us soon, and we will begin. Just a moment. We have a nice day ahead of us. Hallel, Akdamut, reading of the Ten Commandments. I used to say, it's all here at Temple Beth Emet. So, begin in a moment. Okay, well, I'll begin our davening this morning. Rabbi will joining us, I'm certain of it. There's a tradition on Shavuot to stay up all night and study. And so perhaps the Rabbi was engaged in late night study, a little tired, but he'll be here this morning, I have no doubt. But for us, we'll begin, as we usually do, with Bir Chod HaShachar on page 65. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lesech vivina, lavchin b'nimul v'en laila. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shasani b'tzalmaho. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shasani Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shasani ben chorin. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, poikeach livrim. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, malbish arumim. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, ma'atira surim. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, zokif kifufim. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, roch haaretz al hamayim. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shasali kol tzorki. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamechid mitzadei gaver. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Osei Yisrael bigvura. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Osei Yisrael b'tifara. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hanotein li'ayv koach. Chag Sameach. I'll let you take it from where we left off.
Okay, I know exactly where you are. I thought I was doing better on time until I looked at the clock.
Yeah.
All right. We are on, we just did page 65.
Let me finish the bracha. Tneinu yom b'chol yom achenu ches l'rachamim, beinecha v'nei choreinu t'gmelech chasadim tovim, baruch atah Adonai, k'melech chasadim tovim le'emo Yisrael.
So now we're going to go to page 70, no, page 74. The Psalm for Monday. Monday. Shir mizmor livnei korach, gadol Elohim u'olam ha'olam Eloheinu har kodsho. Ki ze Elohim Eloheinu olam va'ed hu yenachemnenu al muhu. We're going to go to page 81. Mizmor shir hanakat habayit leDavid. I don't know. הפקת מספדי למחולי, פיתחת סקיפתה עזרני שמחה, למען יזמך כבוד לא ידום, אדוני אלוהי לעולם עודך. And that brings us to the end of this section, and there's always a Kaddish at the end of the section. This one's a mourner's Kaddish, meaning we completed a part of the service, or a service in and of itself. Those in mourning or observing a yurtzeit, recite with me. Page 82. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Bi'alma divra kirutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechonu v'yomechonu v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael. Ba'gala v'zman kari v'yimru. Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach li'olam olomei omaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei d'kudsha b'richu. Liela min kol bechata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da'amiron bi'oma v'imru. Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shmaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. We continue on page 83. If you're not standing, you have the opportunity now to do so. Baruch she'amar v'haya ha'olam, Baruch hu, Baruch oseh v'reshit, Baruch omer v'yoseh, Baruch gozer mekayim, Baruch merachim al haaretz, Baruch merachim al habriot, Baruch mishalem sachar tov l'reyav, Baruch chai la'ad, v'kayam lanetzach, Baruch podeu matziu, Baruch Shemo. Yachid Chehalumi Melech Meshubakim for Aded Shemo Hagadol Baruch Atah Adonai Melech Mehulal Batishbachu. And we will continue at the bottom of page 85, and you may be seated if you're not already. Romimu Adonai Eloheinu v'ishtachavu l'har kodsho. Romimu Adonai Eloheinu v'ishtachavu l'har kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romimu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romimu. Adonai Eloheinu v'ishtachavu l'har kodsho. Romimu Adonai Eloheinu v'ishtachavu l'har kodsho. And at the top of the bottom paragraph on page 86, Hoshia et amecha, uvorech et nachalatecha, urem, 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 v'nasem, urem, v'nasem ad ha'olam. Hoshia et amecha, uvorech et nachalatecha, urem, 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 v'nasem, urem, v'nasem ad ha'olam. And on page 88, no further ado, we'll go right to the line that begins with a mem. Mi ha'ish hechafetz chayim, ohev yamim, Ohev yamim liroto, nitzor lishon chameira, usvatecha medaber mirma, sur meira v'yaseh tov, baki shalom v'rodfehu. Mi ha'ish hechafetz chayim, Ohev yamim liroto. And we will continue on page 92. And we talked about this last night a little bit. We also mentioned we didn't get a chance to mention the Chafetz Chaim.
Yeah, well, it's next year.
Next year. Okay.
It's okay.
It's all good. It's all good. Nice little thing last night.
Yeah.
It was nice and it was little. Okay, so let's just start at the beginning here. I've been away a little bit. Hodu l'Adonai ki tov ki li olam chasdo. Hodu l'Elohei Elohim ki li olam chasdo. Hodu l'Adonai Adonim ki li olam chasdo. Lo seniflaot gidolo levado ki li olam chasdo. Bottom 4. Shebishifleinu zachar lanu ki li olam chasdo. Vayifrekenu mitzarenu ki le'olam chasdo. Noten lechem lechol basar ki le'olam chasdo. Hodu le'el Christo. And on page 94, say 6 lines from the bottom.
Tzadik Adam Yivrach Ki Erez Balevanon Yizgah Shetulim Biveit Adonai Bechatzrot Eloheinu Nuvum B'Seiva Dishenim Verananim V'Hagid Ki Yashar Adonai Tzuri V'Lo Avlat Habo. Continue on page 96 with a touch of Ashrei. Ashrei Yoshvei Ve'itecha Oldi Hallelu Chasela
Ashrei ha'am shekach lo, Ashrei ha'am sh'Adonai Elohav
Tila L'David.
ידבר פי ויברר כל בשר שם קדושו לעולם ועד ואנחנו נברך ים מעתה ועד עולם. Hallelujah. And we'll go down to the bottom of page 97, 2 lines up. Yimloch Adonai leolam Elohai Tzion Lidor Vador. Hallelujah. 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 And we will continue on page 99, 5 lines from the bottom of the psalm. Yehalelu et Shem Adonai ki nisgav shemo levado hodo al eretz v'shamayim vayarem kerem li'amo tehila lechol chasidim livnei Yisrael am kerovo. Hallelujah, hallelujah. And on page 100 in the middle, hallelujah, 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 b'kodsho, hallelujah, b'rkiya uzo, hallelujah, v'gvurotav, hallelujah, kirov gulo, hallelujah, b'teika shofar, hallelujah, b'neva v'chinor, hallelujah, b'tof u'machor, hallelujah, b'minim v'ugav, hallelujah, b'tziltzilei shama, hallelujah, b'tziltzilei truah, kol ha'neshama, hallelujah, 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 kol ha'neshama, hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. And we continue on page 101, first paragraph, 3 lines down. L'cho Adonai hagedula v'hagevura v'hatiferet v'hanetzach v'hahod ki chol hashamayim u'va'aretz l'cho Adonai hamamlacha v'haminaseh l'chol erosh. And we will continue on page 102. which the marching version of the Song of the Sea, which also does not mention the theophany at Sinai, although it doesn't have to. Oz yashir Moshe uvenei Yisrael et hashira hazot l'Adonai vayomeru le'mor ashir l'Adonai ga'oga asus v'ravo rama vayam aziv zimraya vayehili lishua Ze'eli yan vehu Elohei avi Aromen hu Adonai Shmilchama Adonai Shemo Vod paro v'chelo yarav hayam U'mivcha shel yishavtu u'v'yam suv. And march through the sea they did. We will now continue on page 104, middle section, first line. Ilufinu male shira, shira kayam, ushonenu rina kamon galab. Ilufinu male shira, Male shira kayamu shonen rina kamon galal. Ilufinu male shira kayamu shonen rina kamon galal. And now we continue on page 105, first paragraph, 3 lines from the bottom at the little square. Nehalecho nshbechecho nefarechecho nevarech et shem kodshecha kamor leDavid barchi nafshi et Adonai v'kol karovai et shem kodsho ha'el b'tatzumot uzecha. Oh, it's a Yom Tov. It's a Yom Tov. Why don't you take over here?
I think I will. Middle of page 105. Ha'el b'tatzumot uzecha ha'gadol b'kvod shemecha ha'givor lanetzach v'nora b'norotecha ha'melech ha'yosef ha'gizerav v'nisah.
Third paragraph, Shochenad.
Shochenad marom v'kadosh shemo.
Shochenad marom v'kadosh shemo.
V'chadu v'anu tzadikim Adonai v'yeshavim navatila v'vishalim lidalal v'divrei tzadikim lidbarach v'dilashon chasedim lidrama v'kerev kedoshim tikadash u'machalot b'vod amchavit Yisrael. V'chodohu lanu l'shabeach v'elomehim lehadel v'arech l'aleu l'kalis ha'chod divrei shivot v'tishbechot David ben Ishai avdecha meshichecha.
You're invited to rise. What page 106? Yishtabach.
Yishtabach zivcha lad maginu el ha'melchot. My mouth's going to come out. Birachot me'atav yodolam baruch Adonai
Shemo.
El melech olam tishbachot El ha'odot Adonai nivlot Habachel b'zilui zimra melech Elchei olami.
Amen.
Yidgadav Hashem mirabah.
Amen.
Bilbah yivrach rodei v'yamelech malchutei v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayidecha b'Yisrael b'gadol המבורך, לעולם עולם מעלמיה, יתברך. יתברך וישתבח, ויתברך ויתמה ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתהלל ויתהלל, שמי קודשה.
בריחו.
לילה מכל מלאכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, תמירון ביומא ואמרהו.
Amen. We continue on page 107. Please rise for the Baruch if you can.
Baruch hu Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed.
You may be seated. Please join me at the beginning of the first of two blessings before the Shema. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, yotzer or v'vorei choshech, osei shalom v'vorei et hakol. We continue to the bottom of 107 on our own.
We gotta go to 109.
Oh, I'm stuck in Shabbos.
Yeah, it feels like Shabbos.
Okay, page 109, on the second paragraph from the bottom where it says on weekdays.
El Baruch Yidodea, Echenu Vazarei Chama, Tov Yatzar Kavod Yishma, Me'aron Adas Vivoduza, Pinot Zvav Gidoshim, Rahamim Meishadai, Tamid Misaprim Givadel, Givadel, Kedushato. Yitbrach Melchino Shavach Masedecha, V'amarei Shazida, Yivaruch Hasela. Yibrach Tzvereinu Makin Mago Aleinu Abreu Krishim Shvash.
We're on page 110.
Kulam Uvim, Kulam Berurim, Kulam Giborim, Kulam Osivim, Abravetzon Kulam, Kulam Pokim Bihem. Bikdusha v'dara b'shiva v'zibra v'rach m'shamchim M'farim ha'ezim m'magdishim v'ma'amichim
Et Shem Ha'el HaMelech HaGadol, HaGibor v'Hanora Kadosh Hu.
B'nachad ruach zafar v'avnima Kiddush ha'klam gechad olim v'rim b'yirah
Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh,
Adonai Tzvaot, Melech haaretz kvodo. V'varim v'chayot hakodesh Rosh Gadol, Minasim l'matzravim, Z'madav shavachim v'yomrim,
Baruch Kavod Adonai Mimkomo.
Ve'abrach miyotideinu l'melech haMelech. Orachadash al Tzion Ta'ir V'nizgech l'anu meira le'ora.
Orachadash al Tzion Ta'ir V'nizgech l'anu meira le'ora.
Baruch atah Adonai
Baruch Baruch Shemo.
Yotzer ha'me'ara.
Amen. Page 111, the second blessing before the Shema, Ahava Rabbah.
Ahava Rabbah Avdanu, Adonai Eloheinu, Echem Elagdol Avitzela, Chamalda Aleinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Ba'avur Avodeinu, Shebatchu V'cha, Shebatchu V'cha, Avinu Malkeinu. V'tilamdem chukei chayim, K'dechanenu Zvamedeinu, Avinu ha'av ha'rachaman, Rachim
עלינו, ותן בליבנו להבין, השכיל לשמוע, וללמוד וללמד, לשמור ולעשות, ולקיים את כל דברי תלמוד תורתך באהבה, והאר עינינו בתורתך, ודבק ליבנו במצוותיך, ויחל לבבינו לאהבה וליראה את שמך, ולא נבוש לעולם ועד, ולא נבוש לעולם ועד, כי בשם קודשך הגדול והנורא בתחתו נגילה ונשמחה, נגילה ונשמחה בישועתך. והביאנו לשלום, ציצית מהריבה כנבוד הארץ, ותוליכנו כל ממיעוט לארצנו, כי אלה בואו אל ישועתנו, ובאנו בחריתה מכל המלאכות, וקירבנו לשמך הגדול, סלע באמת, להודות לך ולייחדך באהבה. ברוך אתה אדוני,
ברוך שמו,
הבוחר בעמו ישראל באהבה.
אמן.
שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך ולכתך בדרך, בשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להודות ידיך, וילדות מדיניך, וכתב דם על זאת ביתך ובשעריך.
In the next two paragraphs, quietly. Jesus ויציב נחום וחיים ישר למען. You may release the tzitzit.
Malkeinu melech avodeinu, goleinu kol avodeinu, tzveinu tzveinu vodeinu matzileinu melam shemecha, ein Elohim zulatecha.
114.
Tilo lelyon, Baruch Hu Mivarach, Moshe b'nei Yisrael, Echanu Shirah, V'simcha Rabba v'Baruch Olam.
Please rise.
Mi chamocha v'elim Adonai, Mi chamocha v'elam HaKadosh, Na'aradi lo sefer lev. Shira Chadasha Shebechul Gerlim L'Shem Chaz B'Dehem Kachal Kulam Hodovim Lich V'Yamreu Adonai Yimloch Le'olam Va'ed Tzvoi Yisrael Kulma B'Edrat Yisrael V'Dich Numecha Yehuda V'Yisrael Kol Aleinu Adonai Tzvaot Shemo Kidosh Yisrael Baruch Adonai
The Amidah for this holiday morning, for Shavuot, begins on page 123A or B, and we skip page 124 in the silent version that we're about to do, and we continue on 125 through 128. The reader's repetition of the Amidah begins on page 123a. You may be seated until page 124 for the Kedusha.
Baruch atah Adonai
Baruch Shemo.
Eloheinu Elohei Avoteinu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov El HaGadol HaGibor VeHanor HaEl Elyon Gomel Chazadim Tovim Megonei HaGahor V'zacher Chasdei Avot U'mevii Goel Livnei Vneihem Le'man Shemo B'Yahav HaMelech Chazil Moshiach U'Magin Baruch atah Adonai
Baruch Shemo.
Magin Avraham
Amen.
Adonai Gibor Le'olam Adonai V'chei Metim Adonai V'loshiyah Morid Hadar Mechagel Chaim B'chesed Mechayim Metim B'rachamim Rabim Samech Navim V'ravei Cholim Umadir Asurim Umikayim Emunat Havi Sheinei Afar Michamocha B'givuro Umido Melach Melech Mimid Umichael Umadmech Yeshua V'nemanad Achayot Medim Baruch atah Adonai
Baruch Shemo.
B'chei hametim.
Amen. Page 124, you are invited to rise.
Nikadesh et shimcha ba'olam, Gishem shema Gishem adam b'shmei mara, Kagadu v'yad neviecha, V'karazeh el zeh ve'amar. Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzebaot, Melech haaretz kvodo. Az b'karash gadol, Ane v'chazah, Maz v'ibgo, Minasim l'umatzirah, V'im l'umatam baruch yomehiru, Baruch yivod Adonai v'imkomo. Maginu Tovia, Vidim Lochaleno, Magim Adachnoloch, Madahaidim Loch Bezion, Bigaro Biamino, Delam Voetishkon, Tid Kadash, Vidachim Lushalayim Mirecha, L'dor v'dor, l'nitzach nitzachim. V'einu tirena, tirena malchutecha. Kadavar ha'amor, b'shirei uzecha. V'einu tirena, tirena malchutecha. Kadavar ha'amor, b'shirei uzecha. Hayedei, David, Hayedei, David, B'Mashiach tzidkecha. Hayedei, David, David, Hayedei, David, Mashiach tzidkecha. Yimloch Adonai le'olam, Elchai Tzion l'dor v'dor, hallelujah. L'dor v'dor nagid golecha, l'netzach netzach v'shadecha nagdish, v'shivchacha Eloheinu mipinu l'musir l'moed, ki el melech gadol v'kadosh ada, baruch atah Adonai.
Baruch Shemo.
El HaKadosh.
You may be seated. We're on page 125.
Ata v'chadanu mikol ha'ahavim, Avdot hamnati dabano, V'mamdal mikol ha'shodot, V'kidashtan mitzvotecha, V'kiravdanu makin l'vodotecha, Shimcha gadol, Vakado Jalenu Karada. Vaditen Lad Adonai Eloheinu B'Yahava. Moadim L'Zevcha. Chagim Zmadim L'Zaza. Edom Chag HaShavuot Hazeh. Zman Matan Doradeinu Mikragod Ezecher. L'Tziat Mitzrayim. Eloheinu V'Elohi Avotenu. Yalevi Ava V'Yagia. V'Yerevi Raza V'Shama V'Yimagim V'Zacher Zichronenu. V'Yignolenu V'Zichron Avotenu. Zichron Mashiach Ben David Avdecha. Zichron Yerushalayim Yekodecha. Zichron Galavcha Ben Yisrael Avanecha. Livlei Dalit Tovaha. Lechidu Chesed Rachamim. Lechem L'Shalom B'Yom Chag HaShavuot Hazeh. Zachreinu Adonai Eloheinu B'Li Tova.
Amen.
U'Vagneinu B'Li Bracha.
Amen.
V'Shinu B'Lechayim.
Amen.
Uvidvayu Shvarachamim. Chus V'Chanin Rachim Alinu V'Shinu Kilecheinu. Ki El Melech Chanun Rachum Atah. V'Asinu Adonai Eloheinu Et Birkat Modecha L'Chaim L'Shalom L'Zivcha L'Zason Kasher Azita V'Amarta L'Varchinu Eloheinu V'Le'avotinu Kadeshenu B'Mitzvadecha V'Din Chalkinu B'Toradecha Sabinu Mitzvecha V'Samcheinu B'Yeshuvatecha V'Daher Libeinu Li'Avdecha 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 B'Emet V'Daher Libeinu Li'Avdecha 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 B'Emet V'Anchilinu Adonai Eloheinu B'Simcha B'Sazon Mo'adi Kodechecha Yismechu V'Cha Yisrael Mekadesh Shemecha Baruch Atah Adonai
Baruch Shemot.
Mekadesh Yisrael Ve'azmanim
Amen.
Ritzei on Elohim Bamches Od Viladam V'Hashem Ramadali V'Beitecha V'Viladam V'Vadam V'Ratzon V'Ratzon V'Mid V'Dat Yisrael Amecha V'Teches Enayneinu V'Shivchatzia Brachamim Baruch Atah Adonai
Baruch Shemot.
Hamachadeh Shechinato L'Tzion
Amen.
Modim
Modim
Anachnu
Anachnu.
L'Shatona.
Last paragraph on 126.
Hatav Gilacharachamecha V'Marachim Giladamachazadech Melam Kivinu La V'Yahal Klamit Barach B'It Mamshim Chamakan Tzmilu Lam Ba'ed
127.
V'Chol HaChaim Edu Chazela V'Yala Jeva Be'amed El Shadel Vadinu Zela Baruch Atah Adonai
Baruch Shemot.
Atah Shivcha L'Charel Lehodo
Amen.
Eloheinu V'Le'avotinu Ba'achid V'Bracha HaMishel Hesed B'Torah G'Divayim Ashavdecha Amura Bibi Aron Ulvanav Gorim Am Kidoshecha Ka'amur Yivarechecha Adonai V'Yishmerecha
Ken Yehi Ratzon.
Yahi Adonai B'Lemelecha V'Yichunecha
Ken Yehi Ratzon.
Yisa Adonai B'Lemelecha V'Yasim Lecha Shalom
Ken Yehi Ratzon.
Sim
Sim.
Shalom
Shalom. Sim Shalom.
Olam Sim
Sim.
Sim
Sim.
Shalom
Tova Uvracha.
Ve'id v'chesed v'rachamim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael amecha v'achinu v'hinu v'lanu k'yachad v'yor panecha Sim Shalom Sim
Sim.
Sim
Sim. sim shalom,
Shalom, sim shalom,
tova
tovah
uvracha,
sim,
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 sim shalom,
shalom,
tova
tovah
uvracha. Ki v'arbanecha nada lanu Adonai Eloheinu. Torah Chaim v'ahavat chesed u'tzedakah u'racha v'rachamim v'chaim v'chaim v'shalom. Sim shalom, sim shalom, sim shalom davar u'racha v'alam. Sim shalom davar u'racha. V'tov v'necha levorech et amcha Yisrael b'chol elucha shah b'shlomecha. Sim shalom, sim shalom,
Shalom,
sim shalom davar u'racha b'alam. Sim shalom davar u'racha. Baruch Adonai,
Baruch Shemo.
Baruch Namo Yisrael, Bashalom.
We now move over to page 133, and as it's a holiday, we are going to do Hallel.
Baruch Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher haggadah shalom b'mitzvotav, v'tzivonu livra et ha'halel.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher qadishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu likro et hallel.
Mikimi me'afadav ve'ashbod arim evion V'hoshivi ibni divei yamo Moshivi agret abayit Ema banim semecha Hallelujah. Tzid Yisrael mi-Mitzrayim, Meid Yaakov, me'am lo ez. Haida Yehuda lekodsho, Yisrael mam shelodav. Hayam rav hayanos, Hayarden yisov leachor, Harim rakiduche
elim.
Givat kivnei tzon. Malecha hayam
kitanus
hayarden tisov leachor
tisov leachor
Eharim Tirkeduche
elim
Givao
kivnei tzon
Milifnei Adon Uli Yaretz
Hachofchi hatzor
Hagamayim Chalamim
L'main Mayim, page 134.
La la no Adonai la la no Kedishim Kadin Gabalach Hasakah Yisrael b'dach Adonai Ez Maginamu. Bedara, Bedhubadonai, Ezra Maginamu. Iri Adonai, Bedhubadonai, Ezra Maginamu. Adonai, Zecharana Yevarech, Yevarech el Beit Yisrael, Yevarech el Aaron, Yevarech Yirei Adonai, Haketani mimagidolim, Yosef Adonai Alechem, Alechem v'al b'neichem, Beruchim atem Adonai. Oseh shamayim va'aretz,
Hashamayim, Shamayim Adonai, Aretz natan livnei Adam, Ametim Hallelujah,
Velo koyode duma, v'anachnu nivarech Yah, me'ata v'ad olam, me'ata v'ad olam. Hallelujah.
135.
Et alech livnei Adonai, be'atzot ha'chayim, emati yadaber, ani me'od, emati yadaber, ani me'od, אני אמרתי בחובזי, כל האדם גוזיר.
Because you showed us stuff, Shemot.
חייז ברזה בחדודה, שם אדוני אקרא. ידעי אדוני השלים, נגדנה לחלמו. בחצות בית אדוני בדרכי, ירושלים, הללויה.
136.
Hallelujah, Adonai, goyim shabechu, kol ha'omim, ki gavor aleinu chasdo, v'emet Adonai li'olam, hallelujah. Adonai, ki dov, ki le'olam, chasdo. Yom ana Yisrael, ki le'olam, chasdo. Yom Luna,
Aharon ki le'olam,
chasdo. Yom Luna, Yirei Adonai, ki le'olam, chasdo. Mid ha'mitzar karatiya, Anani v'mechavya, Adonai li lo ira, ma'yaseh li adam. Adonai li be'ozrai, v'ani erev izaniai, tov lachazak, b'Adonai Mibtoach b'nivim. Kol goyim tzivavuni, kol goyim tzivavuni b'shem Adonai ki amilam. Sabuni gam tzivavuni, Sabuni gam tzivavuni b'shem Adonai ki amilam. Sabuni chir v'horim doach v'gish gotzim b'shem Adonai ki amilam. Dachod echidani lin po v'Adonai hazarani hazi v'zimradia v'yehi lishua hazi v'zimradia Sharit Tzedek Avova Madeya Zehajar Ladonai Tzadikim Yavahu
137.
Odecha ki ani dani v'adehi lishua Odecha ki ani dani v'adehi lishua Emet mazel habanim Haida lerosh bina Emet mazel habanim Haida lerosh bina Meid Adonai Haida zot Hinivlad b'eineina Meid Adonai Haida zot Hinivlad b'eineinu Zeh hayom asa Adonai Nagila v'nismechava Zeh hayom asa Adonai Nagila v'nismechavo Anadonai Hoshiana
Anadonai Hoshiana.
Anadonai Hoshiana
Anadonai Hoshiana.
Anadonai Haslichana
Anadonai Hatzlichana.
Anadonai Haslichana
Anadonai Hatzlichana.
Baruch Hu Meshivonai Baruch
Eliata.
Ki l'chad tov l'adar l'shem chalel l'samer Ki me'olam ha'olam ha'tayel b'harachat Adonai
Baruch Baruch Shemo.
Melech me'ulal b'tishbacho
Amen. And we conclude Shacharit on page 138 with Kaddish Shalem.
Yikra v'grashem me'raba
Amen.
V'amani v'achudi v'mechodi v'chachol v'mechol v'chachol v'beit Yisrael V'agla v'izman kariv v'yimrel
Amen.
Yesh me'raba mevorach V'yolam alam elmaya
Yitbarach.
Yitbarach shtabach Yitbarach v'naseh v'rav v'naseh v'naseh v'naseh
Brichu.
Elam yikabercha da v'shivada Shivachada v'nachmata D'm'ramad ma v'yimrel
Amen.
Tid kabel sodan vodan d'chol Yisrael Kadam ahon v'shmaya v'yimru
Amen.
Yish tam ramin shemaya v'chayim alin V'akad Yisrael v'yimru
Amen.
Azeh shalom imramahav V'yazeh shalom alinu V'yakol Yisrael v'yimru Amen
Shkoach.
Rachtia.
Take a breath. We're going to continue now with the Torah service on page 139, and you can be seated until we get to the part where we open the ark.
Ein kamocha v'Elohim Adonai v'gemasecha malekudecha malechot kol olamim u'memshalecha b'chodor v'ador Adonai melech Adonai malach Adonai imach ve'lavayed Adonai ozi amal yidin Adonai yivarech Et amo v'shalom Avarachamim Idiva v'tzonecha Et Zion Tivneh chomot Yerushalayim Tivneh chomot Yerushalayim Ki v'chah Livad Badachnu Melech Eram Benisa Adam Alamin. Vayibin Sahara Vayamer Moshe Kulma Adonai V'yafuzu oyevecha V'yanusu bisanecha V'banecha Ki mitzion Tetzei Dora Ki mitzion Tetzei Dora L'divar Adonai V'Yerushalayim Baruch Shenatan Torah Baruch Shenatan Torah Le'amo Yisrael V'Kidushato.
We continue in the middle of page 140.
Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum Echanu, Erech Abayim, V'Rav Chesed V'Emet, Noteh Chesed Alamim, Noteh Avon V'Aveda, V'Chayda V'Nagim, Adonai,
Well, I hope everyone's been tuning in lately and got to see Eric and Marcia and Scott and Jason Fetty. Forgive me, Jason. Well, as usual, for the holidays, I like to find something that's meaningful and nice and well-crafted to share with you. And this year, for Shavuot, I've got a couple of pieces. I'll do one today and one tomorrow. They're from a book by Rabbi Jonathan Wittenberg, who's a Masorti rabbi, lives in Israel. I believe he's a child of survivors. A lot of his stuff has to do with his parents and the way they raised him in the wake of the horror of the Holocaust. But nonetheless, he comes through with a lot of joy and a lot of history. So this is called The Story of a Scroll. And as much as Shavuot, despite what I said last night, we still celebrate the giving of the Torah. That is the official line. And that's why the rabbis picked the Torah portion that they did. And you'll get to that in just a minute. The Story of a Scroll. One very special Thursday morning, we had the privilege of reading from a Torah scroll that had not been used in 60 years. The story of the fortunes of the Sefer Torah involves at least 5 generations and epitomizes the fate of the Jewish people in our century. It begins, insofar as we can reconstruct it, in 1937. It was in this year that my paternal great-grandfather, Rabbi Jacob Freeman, died suddenly while on holiday in Moravia. Although he was an Av Beit Din, the head of a rabbinical court in Berlin, it had been his express wish that he should be buried in Haleskow, Czechoslovakia, the place where he had begun his rabbinical career. We have pictures of the long procession that accompanied him to his final resting place. Soon afterwards, his library, including the Sefer Torah, was packed in some 30 crates to be sent to his son Alfred, my father's uncle. Alfred Freeman was a judge and had been living in Germany, but 2 years previously, when the Nazis prevented him from even entering the court over which he'd been used to preside, he and his wife left for Rome. There, a family member who was researching the Jewish section of the Vatican Library was able to help him obtain employment. But before his father's books could reach him, he was once again obliged to flee. He left fascist Europe behind him and settled for good in the ancient homeland of the Jewish people. The crates would duly have followed, except by the time they reached Italy, Mussolini had declared war on Ethiopia and the Mediterranean was blocked. It was blockaded. The books in the Sefer Torah, along no doubt with the possessions of countless others, were lost in Italy, victims first of a regional and then of a global conflict that engulfed most of the world and devoured over 1/3 of the Jewish people. Once the British had realized that those Jews who had fled Europe for the safety of its shores were not enemy aliens, but passionate foes of Nazism, they allowed them to enter the forces and eventually permitted the formation of the Jewish Brigade. Among the chaplains to this force, as it fought its way through Italy with the British Army, was Ephraim Urbach, Ephraim Urbach, as he was known in Israel, later to become a renowned author and professor at the Hebrew University. And in his youth, he had frequented my grandparents' home in Breslau, where, as a young rabbinical student, he had taught Hebrew to the children, my father among them. One day, a soldier in the brigade came to him with the report that he had found some boxes of Jewish books in a cave. Urbach's curiosity was immediately aroused, and one can only imagine his surprise when he found on the crates the familiar name of Freiman. Thus, 9 years and a world war later, the books finally reached their destination. Alfred Freiman was at last in possession of his father's library. Around this time, Alfred was offered a professorship at the Hebrew University. This honor was to lead to his tragic death. Situated on Mount Scopus, the university, together with the Hadassah Hospital, was cut off from the Jewish sections of Jerusalem in early 1948. By agreement with the British authorities, a convoy of doctors and nurses, students and academics would travel fortnightly under their protection to relieve the beleaguered personnel of these institutions. Thus it was that my father's uncle came to be among the 77 Jews who lost their lives when, shortly after the bombing of the King David Hotel, the buses carrying them to Mount Scopus were attacked and burned within sight of the watching British Army. Alfred's books were eventually given by the family to the Hebrew University in his memory. The Sefer Torah, which was seriously damaged and unusable as a result of the time it had been left in the cave, passed to Alfred's sister, my father's mother. With her death, it went to my aunt. Eventually, it came to my father, and my father brought it with him to England. When one day he heard that a scribe would be coming to my home to examine some letters in a scroll belonging to my congregation, he brought his sefer along to gain an expert opinion. And passages in the book Bereshit were entirely black. Sections in the book Vayikra were pale, bordering on the reddish. It was a law given to Moses at Sinai that every letter of the Torah should be black. The situation did not look hopeful, but when the scribe, a wonderful, warm-hearted man and a true chassid, saw how much the fate of the sefer meant to our family, he determined to take it with him. He considered it to be some 200 years old, and it aroused his keen interest. Even though some parts were irreparable, he would see whether on his travels he could not discover usable sections of other fading scrolls compatible in their small size, by means of which he could reconstruct and render kosher our Torah. There followed almost a year of hope, inquiries, and waiting, and one Sunday night the phone rang at my home. "I've finally done it. Can I bring the sefer around and show it to you now?" Unfortunately, my father was away that day, so the scribe unrolled the scroll across my table and explained how here he had amended a fading section, and there he found a parchment of 3 or 4 columns that fit, and here inserted just a column. It was all done, except that when he unrolled the Torah in full, there was not 1 scroll, but 2. He had forgotten to sew the last of the new parchments together. Off he went in search of the ritually suitable thread to make the stitches. Although it was 10:30 at night, my wife and I, moved by what was unfurling before us, woke our then 5-year-old son to watch. Mossy has always loved to draw the Torah and play with the scroll he has made for himself. We wanted him to witness and remember this final act of restoration. The scribe came back, and Mossy watched, but not in silence. "Is that the same kind of thread as Mummy uses when she sews?" How do you tell a child that it's actually not a thread, but animal gut? It was then that it occurred to me that the question pointed to a metaphor and a richer response. The Torah is stitched together with a living substance, life. The living of it is what transforms it from withering columns awaiting burial to sacred testament. That is why the young must be witness to and of the rededication of the old. The next Thursday, my father was called up to the Sefer Torah. For once, it was fortuitous that there was no Kohen at the minyan. My father could be given the very first Aliyah. He quietly said the Shehachiyanu blessing to the God who has preserved us and kept us alive and brought us to this time. Chag Sameach.
Nice story.
It is a nice story. There's another one tomorrow. We now turn to our Chumash, and we read for the readings for Shavuot. We start with the book of Exodus, Shemot, chapter 19, verse 1. And let me see, get this under here. Come on.
Before we do that, how do you want to do the Akdamut?
Oh, yeah, we got to do the Akdamut, yeah. The Akdamut are still in your Siddur, and they are on page 222. A special prayer that was designed for the holiday. There we go. So what we'll do, as we usually do, we'll do about the first 6-8 lines, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines in the Hebrew, which is a very flowery medieval Hebrew, and then we'll go and read the most of it, the rest of it responsively, and we'll end with a few lines of Hebrew as well.
Sounds good.
Akdamut midin v'sharai shuta avla shakelna harmanu shuta b'vayit reit la deftach b'benak shuta b'varei dvari v'tari adei lekas shuta givuran almin lei v'las fate pri shuta givil ilurikie kine kochor shata.
So now we're on the left side of page 222. Before reading the 10 divine commands, let me speak in awe 2 words or 3 of the one who wrought the world and sustained it since its time's beginning.
At God's command is infinite power, which words cannot define. Were all the skies parchment, and all the reeds pens, and all the oceans ink, and all who dwell on earth scribes, God's grandeur could not be told.
Sovereign over the heavens above, God reigns supreme on earth below. God launched creation unaided and contains it in the bounds of his law.
Without weariness God created, only by divine will, uttered in a gentle sound, God wrought his works in 6 days, then established his glorious sovereignty over the life of the universe.
Myriads of angelic hosts serve God. Divine messengers that propel life's destiny. They arise each morning to their calling. All the celestial beings join in a chorus of praise. In unison they call to one another. All the earth is full of the glory of the thrice Holy One.
In a mighty roar, as the thundering noise of vast waters, moving amidst the heavenly spheres, where the divine light glows brilliant, the angelic hosts proclaim their words of adoration.
Praised be God's glory by every whispering lip, from the place of his abode which is everywhere. All the celestial hosts roar their response in awe. The splendor of God's dominion is acclaimed from age to age.
Yet dearer to God than this is the song of the children of Israel, rising to him morning and evening in free outpourings of adoration.
Chosen to be the faithful servants of God's will, they continually rehearse God's praises, who summoned them in love to pursue the labors of Torah, and accepts their supplications and entreaties, which weave a crown of glory for the Almighty.
The Eternal cherishes their prayers and keeps them ever before him, thus declaring the greatness of Israel, who reiterate that God is one.
Israel acclaims the glory of the ruler of the universe and offers God homage before kings and princes. They all gather and ask in wonder, "Who is this your beloved, O fair one, for whom you brave the perils of the lion's den?" If you would just but join our fold, we would cover you with splendor and glory. In every land would we ratify your every wish.
A wise reply is Israel's. How can you know God with your foolish minds? How compare the glories you bestow with the glory that is God's, with the splendor of God's deeds? In the hour of deliverance, when the light divine will shine on us, while darkness covers your mocking multitudes, when God will manifest his glorious might and render his foes their due, and triumph to the people abounding in virtue, whom God has loved.
Joy unmarred will reign in hearts ennobled, pure. Jerusalem will rise again. Her exiled children will come back to her. Day and night God will shed his glory on her and build in her anew his sacred shrine of praise.
The righteous will possess the reward for their service. They will dwell before their Creator, arrayed on golden thrones with 7 steps ascending, resplendent as the azure of the sky and the brightness of the stars.
They will acclaim God. It is God we trusted with faith unyielding in the days of our captivity. God will lead us forever, renewing us with the glee of youthful dancers.
We will possess the portion God set apart for us in ancient days. Leviathan and the wild ox of the mountains will charge and contend with each other, the beast goring fiercely with its horns, the sea monster striking with its mighty fins.
But Adonai will make an end of them with his great sword and prepare a banquet for the righteous.
They will sit at tables of precious stones, rivers of balsam flowing before them, and they will drink the precious wine stored for them from the first of days.
O you upright who have heard the song of God's praise, may you ever be in the blessed circle of God's faithful.
Through all eternity, exalted be Adonai, who conferred true love upon us by entrusting to us the Torah. Zakayin God Shematun Shavada Shirata Kavin Kain Tevon Behanu Charuta B'tiz Gundi Tetavun Ba'ela Darata Aretz Situn Milui Dinafkin Behadrata Meruram Hu Elahim Bikadma Vataraita Svivi Trivan Sahar Lad Oraita. It's a nice poem.
It really is. It takes, if you look at it closely, it takes some of the history as we know it from the Torah, and it also takes some of the midrash, that thing about Leviathan,
Right.
you know, being part of the final meal for the righteous. And actually, it's not supposed to be kosher, but in the world to come, you can eat it.
Also, like I said, the Ivrit, isn't Aramaic? Is the language?
It's sort of Aramaic.
Yeah, the language is complicated, and it's a challenge, but also fun to read. I know in years past we've read the whole thing responsively, with the idea being that let's challenge ourselves to see, you know, how to get these words out of our lips.
Yeah, well, that's a great challenge.
It is.
But I don't think people watching their screens want to see it. Okay. So our Torah reading begins on page 436, chapter 19 of Exodus of Shemot, in the Parsha of Yitro. And it's when the people of Israel got to the bottom of Mount Sinai and they camped there. And God calls Moses up and says to him, look, you saw everything I did for you. So I want you to be, for me, a kingdom of priests and a holy nation.
בחודש השלישי לצאת בני ישראל מארץ מצרים ביום הזה באו מדבר סיני ויצאו מרפידים ויבואו מדבר סיני ויחנו במדבר ויחד שם ישראל נגד ההר ומשה עלה אל אלוהים ויקרא אליו אדוני מן ההר לאמור כה תאמר לבית יעקב ותגיד לבני ישראל אתם ראיתם אשר עשיתי למצרים ועשה אתכם על כנפי נשרים ואביא אתכם אלי ועתה אם שמעתי אשמעו בקולי ושמרתם את בריתי והייתם לי סגולה מכל העמים כי לי כל הארץ ואתם תהיו לי ממלכת כהנים וגוי קדוש אלה הדברים אשר תדבר אל בני ישראל.
The next section that we're going to read starts on page 438 at the top, and it's all about, after God talks to Moses, Moses gets the elders of Israel, or the people, together, and puts before them the proposition that the Lord has commanded them to do these things, and all the people answered as one, saying, all that the Lord has spoken, we will do. They're going to be very loyal to God, which, of course, we'll see how that works out later on. But right now, and God says, I'm going to come in a thick cloud in order that the people might hear me when I speak with you and trust you forever after.
ויבוא משה ויקרא לזקני העם וישם לפניהם את כל הדברים האלה אשר ציווה אדוני, ויעדו כל העם יחדיו ויאמרו כל אשר דיבר אדוני נעשה, וישב משה את דברי העם אל אדוני, ויאמר אדוני אל משה, הנה אנוכי בא אליך בהבנן בעבור, ישמע מדברי עמך וגם בך יאמינו לעולם. ויגיד משה דברי העם אל אדוני, ויאמר אדוני אל משה, לך אל העם וקידשתם היום ומחר, וכיבסו סמלותם. והיו נכונים ליום השלישי, כי ביום השלישי ירד אדוני לעיני כל העם על הר סיני. והגבלת את העם סביב לאמור, הישמרו לכם עלות בהר נגוע בקצהו, כל הנוגע בהר מות יומת, לא תיגע בו יד, כי יסכל יסכל, או ירא ירא, אם בהמה אם איש לא יחיה, במשוך היובל, המה יעלו בהר.
Now, Moses got all these instructions that we just saw at the top of the mountain. Moses comes down and relays them to the people. And on the third day, after a purification process, and the sun's coming up, there was thunder and lightning and a dense cloud over the mountains. And the whole, now, there are scholars who make a comparison, a parallel, if you will, to the mountain being on fire but not being consumed. That sort of recalls the burning bush at the other end of the story.
Right.
You know, where it's just a little bush that's not being consumed. But here you have the whole thing. And Moses was leading a flock of sheep at the time in Midian. And here he's leading a flock of people. So they make a lot of comparisons, and you can do a lot with that, actually. So we're starting here on verse 14.
Okay. וירד משה מן ההר אל העם, ויקדיש את העם ויכבסו סמלותם. ויאמר אל העם, היו נכונים לשלושת ימים, אל תיגשו אל אישה. ויהי ביום השלישי בעת הבוקר, ויהי קולות וברקים, וענן כבד על ההר, וקול שובר חזק מאוד, וחרד כל העם אשר במחנה. ויוצא משה את העם לקראת אלוהים מן המחנה, והתייצבו בתחתית ההר, והר סיני אשר כולו מפני אשר ירד עליו אדוני באש. ועל אשונו כשנה כבשן וחרד כל ההר מאוד. ויהי כל השופר הולך וחזק מאוד, משה ידבר ואלוהים יעננו בקול. וירד אדוני אל הר סיני אל ראש ההר, ויקרא אדוני למשה אל ראש ההר, ויעל משה. ויאמר אדוני אל משה. Wait, did I go too far? Yes. That was Shlishi, now I got to start Revi'i.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
So Revi'i starts on verse 20, I apologize.
that's right. It's a good story to get wrapped up in. It's hard to
Yeah.
stop. It's hard to stop when you're telling this story. It really is.
Yeah.
So now God says to Moses, go down, warn the people not to break through to the Lord to look at, or you're going to die. Anybody who touches the mountain, we already saw, is not going to make it through. You get stoned or shot. And the priests who can come near the God's place here have to be ritually pure, and which nobody understands. But Moses says, the people can't come up here, and you warned us, saying, set boundaries around, and God says, yes, I did. So go down and come back together with Aaron, but not with the priests or the people, and break through. Anyway, come back with Aaron. And this goes all the way, I believe, and we will let you know when to stand, but we're going to have the entire Aseret HaDibrot. And you're going to use the special trope in the back of the book, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is for public reading.
Public reading, where it says for public. This is believe it or not, this is public.
Vayired Adonai el Har Sinai el Rosh Har, Vayikra Adonai el Moshe el Rosh Har, Vayal Moshe. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe, Reid Ha'id Ba'am. Ken Yersu el Adonai lirod, V'nafal Mimen Murav. Vega Hama Kohanim, Anigashim el Adonai, Yid Kadashil. Penny Frots Bahem Adonai. Vayomer Moshe el Adonai, Lo Yochal Ha'am La'alot el Har Sinai. Ki Yada, Ha'ida Tabanu Legmor. Hagbel Adar v'kidashto, Vayomer Elav Adonai lech rehid, Valita tavaron imach, V'kohanim ba'am, Al yehersu la'alot el Adonai, Penifot bam, Vayired Moshe el ha'am, Vayomer alehem, V'daber Elohim eid kol dvarim ha'ile lemor.
And you want to please rise, if it's possible, for the Ten Commandments.
Anochi Adonai Elohecha asher hotzeiticha meretz Mitzrayim mibeit avadim lo yeh lecha Elohim achirim al panai lo tazeh lecha vezel v'chod munah asher b'shamayim mimal v'asher ba'aretz mitachat v'asher b'mayim mitachal haaretz Lo tishtachav Elohem, v'lo ta'avdeim, ki anochi Adonai Elohecha Elkanah bokir, avon al banim, al sheleshim v'alrebeim l'sonai, v'yosech esel alafim, l'ohavai l'shomrei mitzvotai. Lo tisa et shem Adonai Elohecha l'shav, ki lo yinageh Adonai, eit asher yisad shemo l'shav. Zachor Edom HaShabbat lekodsho Shishet Yamim Tavod Vasitacho Melachtecha V'yom HaShvi Shabbat Adonai Elohecha Lo Tasecho Melacha Ata Vincha Uvitecha Avdecha V'amadecha V'vehemtecha V'gercha Asher Bisharecha Ki Shishet Yamim Asa Adonai et hashamayim et haaretz et hayam ve'kol asher bam bayanach bayom hashvi aki beirach Adonai yom hashabbat vayikadeshehu kabid et avicha v'et imecha l'man yarechun yamecha al ha'adama asher Adonai Elohecha noten lach lo tirtzach lo tinaf lo tignov lo tanev re'acha Ehid shager, lo tachmod beit re'echa, lo tachmod eshed re'echa, v'yavdo v'amado, v'shoro v'chamaro, v'chol asher l're'echa.
And you may be seated. We're continuing now after the Ten Commandments with the reaction of the people to the light show.
V'cholam Lohim et ha'kolot v'et ha'lapidim v'yir kol ha'shofar v'et ha'ashin v'yar ha'am yadu v'yamdu mirachot v'yamru el Moshe daber ata imanu v'nishma v'yidaber imanu Elohim ben Namud v'yomer Moshe el ha'am al tira'u ki levavor nasod etchem ba'Elohim uvavor te'irato al pnechem leveltitech eta'u Ve'amod ha'am me'rachok, u'Moshe nigash el ha'rafel, asher shama Elohim. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe, kol tamar al b'nei Yisrael, atem re'item, ki min ha'shamayim dibarti imachem, lo dasu niti, Elohei chesed Elohei zahav, lo dasu lachem, mizbach adamah, taseh li v'zavachta alav, et olotecha, ואת שלומך, את שונך ואת בקריך, בכל מקום, אשר אזכיר את שמי אבוא אליך ויברכתיך, ומזבח עבדים תעשה לי, לא תבנה את עין גזית, כי חרבך, הנפת עליה ותכליה, ולא תעלה ומעלות המזבחי, אשר לא תגלה ערוותך עליו.
So now, I guess we go right to the Haftorah.
Well, we got to do the maftir.
Oh, it's the Maftir. It's in another book altogether, yeah.
I just got to pull it up.
Yeah.
Midbar 28.
The book of Bamidbar.
This is one of those days where you actually do a maftir because there's a special maftir section.
Yep,
Whereas normally on Shabbat, the seventh Aliyah encompasses maftir, so we just leave it at that.
right, it just repeats it, but this is chosen for this particular holiday. It's the book of Bamidbar, book of Numbers, chapter 28, verse 26, and you'll find it on page 932. And as always, the maftir talks about the kinds of sacrifices and offerings that are given at the temple at the time of the temple on this holiday.
Vayom ha'bikurim b'hakrivchem mincha chadashah l'Adonai b'shavuotechem v'yikra kodesh yelachem k'malachet avodah lo ta'asu v'yikraftem ala l'reich nichach l'Adonai parim b'nei vakar shtayim ha'il echad shivach k'basi b'nei shana u'min chadam solid b'la b'shaben shlosh esronim l'bar echad shnei esronim l'ayil echad Yisarad, lakeves ha'echad, v'shiva lakavasim, sirizim echad l'chaper alechem, v'ilvad, olahad atamid l'mincha da'asu, t'mimimu lachem, v'nizkehem.
And if you pay attention, these are the very words that are used in the Musaf when we recall what sacrifices were for the holiday. So now, right, it's my favorite Haftorah.
Is it?
It really is. I don't want to do it, but it's the book of Ezekiel. I think it's from the beginning, and it's just trippy. It's absolutely psychedelic. So Ezekiel had a vision, and you're going to see what it was as soon as I get there. Shabbat HaGadol, Pesach, Shavuot, first day. Here we go. It's on page 1321.
Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nevim tovim v'ratzav v'divrei animari be'emet Baruch Adonai habacher b'torah v'Moshe avdoho v'Yisrael amo v'nvihi hamed v'tzedek
Amen.
V'hi b'shloshim shana v'revi'i b'chamisha l'chodesh Vani v'tocha gola al nahar kivar niftechu hashamayim v'ereh marod Elohim b'chamisha halachodesh hi hashana chamishit v'galot hamelech yachin haya divar Adonai v'chezkel ben buzi yakohin beretz kastim al nahar kivar Vati alav shaham yad Adonai va'ere v'hinei ruach ziara ba'a min hatzavah anhan gadol v'ish mitlakachad v'nogalo saviv u'mitocha ke'in ha'chashmal mitocha ish mitocha debut arba chayot v'zeh marehen Demlut Adam, Lahina, Varba Vadim Le'echad, Varba Kinavayim Le'echad Lahem, Raglehem Regel Yishara, Vichav Raglehem Kichav Regel Egel, Vinod Zahatim Kihin, Nechoshed Galal, Fidi Adam Mitachat, Kadvehem, Al Abaat, Rev Ehem, Ufnehem b'chanvehem la'arbatam Chovrot Yishael aqotah kanvehem Lo yisabu v'lechtahan Yish el ever panavi lechu Demud p'neihem P'nei adam P'nei Aryehi El Hayamin, Lahar Batam, Fnei Shor Mahas Mohol, Lahar Batan, Fnei Nesher, Lahar Batan, Ufnehem, Chanfehem, Perudot, Milemat Alish, Shtayim, Chovrohodish, Ushtayim, Mechazot Eid, Kiviotehena, Vish, El Iver Panav, Ilechu, El Asher, Yeshama, Haruach, Lalechet, Yelechu, La Yisravu, Belechtar, Demud HaChayot, Marehem, Kegachalish, Bel Arot, Kimarehi Halapidim, Mid Halechet, Bina Chayot, Vinoga Halaish, Umina Eish, Yod Seva Rahag, Vachayot, Ratso Vashol, Kimarehi Habazahag, Va'ireh Hachayot, Videi, Ofan Echad Baaretz, Eitzel Achayot, Laharba'at Banav, Mari, Haofanim Masehem, Kein Tarshish, Udemutecha Laharbatan, Maharehem, Meahasehem, Kasher Yahovan, Bitoch Haofan, Arlaba'at Riven, Belechtam Yelechel, Lo Yisabu Belechtan, Vigi Bahen, Vigova Lahem, Vier Halahem, Vigahabotaham, Meleote Naim Saviv Larbatan, Uvelechet Achayot, Yechua Ofanim, Etzlam, Uvehi Nasi Achayot Me'al Haaretz, Yinasu Ofanim, Asher, Yeshama Ruach Lalechet Yelechu, Shama Ruach Lalechet, Vaofanim, Yinasu Lumatam Ki, Ruach Baofanim, Belechtam Yelechu, Uveamdam Yamodu, Uvehinasam Me'al Haaretz, Yinasu Ofanim, Lumatam Ki, Ruach Baofanim, Udumut, Haroshei Achayarakia, Kein, Hakerach Hanora, Natu Yaloshem, Milimala, Tachat Harakia, Kadvehem, Yesharot, Isha, Alachotalish, Shitayim Mechaso Lahina Ulish, Shitayim Mechaso Lahina Eid, Giviotehem, Ve'eshma, et kol kadvehem, kekol ma'im rabim, kekol shaddai, belechtam, kol hamula, bikol machaneh, biyamdam, tirapena, chanvehen, vayikol me'al, larakia asher al rosham, biyamdam, tirapena, chanvehen, ulmimah larakia, Asher al-Rosham, Kimare Evan Sapir, Demud Kisei, Bial Demud Hakisei, Demud, Kimare Adam, Alav Milemala, Vaire, Kein Chashmal, Kimare Ishbeit Laha Saviv, Mimare Matnav, Ulemala, Amimare Matnav, Ulematarayeti, Kimare Ish, Vinogalo Saviv, Kimare Agesh et Asher, Yevenan Bayom Ageshem, Kin Mari Hanogaha, Saviv, Mare Demut, Kivodadodai, Vere, Vebo Panai, Veshma Komidaber, Vati Saini Ruach, Veshma Acharai Kol Rash Gadol, Baruch Kivod Adonai, Bimkomo. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, tzor kol olamim, tzadik b'chol darot. Hayel adem ahanav evyosem, medaber mekayim, shekol divaravim edvad tzedek. Ne'eman atah Adonai Eloheinu, v'ne'emanim divarecha, v'divarecha midvarecha. Achaya Shavrikam, Ki Amelech Ne'emam Rachaman Ata Baruch Atah Adonai.
Baruch Shemo.
Ela Ne'eman B'chol Devarav.
Amen.
V'achim As Yanki Beit Chayim, V'v'lalu B'nefesh Toshia B'mirav Yameinu. Baruch atah Adonai.
Baruch Shemo.
Misamech Zion Bivanecha.
Amen.
Samcheinu Adonai Eloheinu b'li'an avi avdecha. V'malchut Beit David Mishichecha b'mirai avaha v'yageli beinu. Hagiz ahalai yishev zar. V'lo yinchalu od acherim ekivodo ki b'shem kodshecha nishbad alav. Shalach b'nei rolil haba'ed. Baruch atah Adonai.
Baruch Shemo.
Magid David.
Amen.
HaTorah v'alavod avad nevi'im b'al yom chag HaShavuot hazeh Shnatat alanu Adonai Eloheinu L'sasonu l'simcha L'chavod l'tifaret Al hagad Adonai Eloheinu Anachnu modim lach Mevarachim otach Yibarach shimcha B'fi chulchai Tarbi le'olam ha'ed Baruch atah Adonai
Baruch Shemo.
Megadesh Yisrael V'hazmanim.
Amen. Okay. Well, I think the next thing we do is Ashrei. So there's no rest for the weary here.
None at all.
Well, I could do the prayer for Israel and the prayer for our country if you want.
No, it's okay. We can go to
Okay.
Ashrei. Are we going to do the book of Ruth today, tomorrow?
No, tomorrow.
Okay. Okay, well, here we go.
151.
Ashvi yoshvi v'itecha odi halelucha sela.
Ashrei ha'am shekacha lo, Ashrei ha'am she'Adonai Elohav
Tila
gila
David.
David.
Avimecha Elohai ha'melech baruch shemcha le'olam va'ed.
B'cho yom avachecha v'alala shemcha le'olam va'ed.
Gadol Adonai mehulam yod v'ligdalato ein cheker.
Dor lidor shabach ma'asecha u'gvurotecha yagidu.
Hadar givad adecha v'divrei v'ladecha asicha.
Ve'zuz norotecha yomeru u'gedularcha saprena.
Ich nirav devchaya habil v'tzid gadecha yiraneinu.
Chanun v'rachum Adonai erech apayim u'gdal chased.
Tov Adonai lahakol v'racha hamaval kol ma'azav.
Yehuducha Adonai kol ma'asecha v'chasidecha yivachucha.
Yifol malachotecha yamehu gevuratecha yidabehiru.
להודיע לבני האדם גבורותיו וכבוד הדר מלכותו.
Malachotecha malachot kalalabihim u'mevdadecha b'chol orvador.
סומך אדוני לכל הנופלים וזוקף לכל הכפופים.
Hine yichaylecha yisabihu v'adanodin lahem et ochlam b'ito.
פותח את ידיך ומשביע לכל חרצון.
Tzadik Adonai b'chol diracha v'chazid b'chol ma'azav.
קרוב אדוני לכל קורב לכל אשר יקרו ואמת.
Ritzot nireya v'yahaseh v'yejav adam yishma v'yoshim.
שומר אדוני את כל אוהביו ואת כל הרשעים ישמיד.
Hilat Adonai yidaber bi v'varech u'basar shem kodsho le'olam va'ed.
ואנחנו נברך יה מעתה ועד עולם. הללויה.
V'do mecheha
We continue on page 155 with the Chatzi Kaddish that ends the Torah service and takes us into our holiday Musaf. Amen.
Bagala, bagala, uvizman garivim rel.
Amen.
Yesh me rabba mivora, v'olam lo me'almaya, yitbarach, yitbarach v'ishtabach, v'yitbar v'yitama v'yitnasi v'yitadar, v'yitale v'yitalal, shemere kudeshah.
Brichu.
V'hila miga birlachada v'shirada, tushbechada v'nechemata, damiram yoma v'ibru.
Amen. We start our holiday Musaf prayer together on page 166b, and we'll stay standing and we'll pray together with 166b and 167 for the Kedusha, and we'll finish silently. This is for Rosh Hashanah, page 170. Page 170 to 178 include all the insertions for Shavuot, and do not read the parts in parentheses because they're for Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elokei Avoteinu, Elokei Avraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov, Elokei Sarah, Elokei Rivka, Elokei Rachel, Elokei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol, HaGibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Kamel Chazarim Dovim v'Ganei HaGol, V'Zacher Chasdei Alot, V'Mevigo El Livnei V'Nehem, Hemahim Shevo B'Yahava, Melech Ozer U'Fokidu Moshiach U'Magin, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magin Avraham, V'Vagin Sarah, Ada Gibor Le'olam Adonai, B'Chemetim Ada Rav Hoshia,
Morid Hatal, Kel Chaim B'Chesed,
B'Chaim Eidim, B'Rachamim Rabim, Samech Nachim, V'Rovech Cholim, U'Matir Asurim, U'Mekayim, Emunadah, L'Shenei Afar, Michamocha B'Gevuro, U'Mido Melach, Melech Memit, U'Michayah, U'Matzmiach Yeshua, V'Nemanad Alachayot Medim, Baruch Atah Adonai, Mechei HaMetim.
page 167.
Naharitzecha v'nagdishecha kisatziach sarvei kodesh hamagdishim shimcha b'kodesh kakadu ayad neviecha v'karazel zeviamar kadosh 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 Adonai Tzivaot Melech haaretz kivodo. Kivohadam alei olam, Mesharidam shalim zelazel, Ayimigam kivodo. Ilmadam baruch yomeru, Baruch kivod Adonai mimkomo. Mimkomo, mimkomo, V'yifem
Rachamim,
V'yachonam yachadim Shemot. Erev v'vogel b'chol yom damir pamayim b'hava Shema omrim Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Aleinu birachamav, birachamav, birachamav. Sheni, 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 le'enei kol chai, yolachem le'Elohim.
Ani Adonai Elohechem.
Adi adirenu Adonai Adonai, Ma'adeh shivcha b'chol haaretz, Vaya Adonai lemelech kol haaretz, Bayom hahu. Hi Adonai echad, U'shemo echad, U'v'divrei kodechecha katuv le'mor, Yimloch Adonai le'olam, Elohai Tzion l'dor v'dor,
Hallelujah.
L'dor v'dor, Nagid kolecha, V'nezach nezach v'shadecha nagdish, V'shivcha Eloheinu me'pin le'musir lamed, Ki Amelch v'kadosh Ada, Baruch Adonai.
Baruch Shemo.
El HaKadosh.
Amen. 170 to 178. And we bid adieu to Musaf on page 181 and head into our concluding prayers with Kaddish Shalem.
Yidgada v'yidgada shmei rabba.
Amen.
Be'almadi v'lachler devi amlich malchutei b'chayikon. U'v'yom eichad v'chayidecha b'ed Yisrael b'gala v'zman gari v'gimerel.
Amen.
Yesh
May
mi
Rabban
rabba
Vorach
mevarach
Le'olam
le'olam me'almaya yidbarach v'ishtabach v'idbar v'idamam v'idnase v'idada v'idale v'idalal shemede kudesha
Brichu.
v'yehila v'kol birchada v'shivada v'bechada v'nechamata damira v'halima v'gimeru.
Amen.
Tekabas l'odom decho Yisrael Kadam v'honi v'shma'aya v'gimeru.
Amen.
Yesh v'amara haba mi'im shema'aya Chaim aleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'gimeru.
Amen.
Ose shalom b'him romav Ose shalom aleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'gimeru.
Amen. Page 182, Ein Kelohenu.
Ein Keloheinu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Gemalkeinu, Ein Gemashienu, Mi Keloheinu, Mi Kadonenu, Mi Gemalkeinu, Mi Gemashienu, Nodel Eloheinu, Nodel Adonenu, Nodel Malkeinu, Nodel Moshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu, Atahu Shektiru, Avoteinu, Livanecha, Eketoret Hasamim.
And on page 183, Aleinu L'Shabeach. Adon HaKol, Latei Gedula Liotzer Bereshit, Asanu K'gayei Ratzon, V'lo Samanu, B'chot Ha'adama, Som Chelkeinu B'kahem, U'korim, U'mishtachavim, U'modim, Melech, Chim, Baruch Hu, Shehu Notei Shamayim V'yosei Haaretz, Karo b'shamayim Mima'al, Zo Shechina Zo B'gavhei Meromim, Hu Eloheinu Od. In solemn testimony to the unbroken faith which links one generation to the next, those in mourning or observing Yahrzeit now rise to praise God's name with the words of the Mourner's Kaddish on page 184. Yitgadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
B'olma divrach kirutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayeichonu v'yomeichonu v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael. B'agala v'zman kariv v'yimru. Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevorach li'olam olomei olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal Shmei l'kudsha b'richu. Li'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiron b'yoma v'yimru. Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabbah min Shmaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru. Amen.
Kiddush?
Yep. So,
Time to wet the whistle.
yep. And you earned it today.
Vayidabir Moshe et Modeh Adonai el bnei Yisrael, Savraiman and Rabbanan Rabbotai.
L'chaim.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pri hagafen.
Amen.
Like they say, it's Manischewitz time.
You got to wonder what Rabbi Manischewitz was like. A sweet guy.
Yeah, imagine, yeah.
Okay. Sorry for the delay. There's extra paper on my podium. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר קדישנו במצוותיו, וציוונו על נטילת ידיים.
Amen.
פותח את ידיך ומסביר לכל חי רצון ברשות. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, המוציא לחם מן הארץ.
Amen. Out of respect for the holiday of Shavuot, one of the challahs is as hard as the Ten Commandments. So.
No, it's good.
Okay.
It's just like I remember it. I thought you were going to say it's cheesecake,
Oh, no.
which would be an innovation.
That would be nice. That would be
Yeah,
nice.
that would be great.
Yeah.
Okay, there are some announcements. I know I saw them here. Of course, the big announcement is Friday, June 11th, the reopening date of Temple Beth Emet. And to mark this auspicious day, we'll be offering a free boxed supper prior to services. So you want to get here by 5:30 for the supper, and you have to reserve. No one will be let in unless they're on the list. 71, you know the office number. Call the office, beg Karen to let you in.
What?
Beg Karen to let you in.
Yeah.
Please, please. Services will be held outdoors with social distancing. Masks are required, and you got to be vaccinated. So,
But other than that,
no, it's
it's like usual.
It's just like the old times.
Yeah.
So we anxiously await your return to the temple. Hope to see you at all services soon. I want to thank Eric Dangot for filling in for me while I was away, and for Marcia Tilchin with her entourage. I think Marcia and Dawn.
Yeah. Well, Scott was here, and Jason Fetty was here. That was
Yes,
nice.
I know. You remember Tony Orlando and Dawn?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Marcia has her two guys there. Women's League is holding another TBE gift shop sale on Sunday, May 23rd, 1 to 4 p.m. Enjoy wine if you're over 21. Anybody in this congregation over 21?
I imagine so.
I don't know. And books from the library will be available, so if you want some books, now's the time. The office will be closed Monday, today and tomorrow, as well as Monday, May 31st for Memorial Day. And if you need to take a name off or put a name on the Misha Barak list, call the office. And we will see you in real shul soon.
Yeah, tomorrow, 9:30. Well, actually, tomorrow, 9:30. We'll
Yeah,
see
that's
you
still
live.
cyber shul.
Cyber show, right? Real
Yep.
soul soup.
Real shul soon.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we go to page 187.
Yeah, let's conclude Adon Olam. Let's take it back. We'll go old school.
Okay.
Adon Olam asher malach b'terem kol yitzir nivra v'nasa v'chefso kol azai melech shemo nikra v'acharei kiklot hakol Vivada imloch nora, vihu haya, vihu hove, vihu yeh, betifara, vihu echad, v'ein sheni, lehamshela, lehachmira, v'li reshit, v'li tachlit, v'lo ha'oz, v'ha'misra, v'hu eli, v'chai gali, v'tzor chadli b'tzara, v'hu nizeh umanosli, minad gozi, v'yom ekra, v'yado, hafkid rochi, v'dishan, v'yahira, v'mruchig, v'yadi, Adonai li, v'lo ero. Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach, everybody. We'll see you here tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat station.
Same bat website.